And the log truck, we've all been driving behind any kind of a truck in general. If you add logs or PVC pipes or anything that's going to roll off, you just automatically go, this is terrible, switch lanes. That very intersection of practicality and sort of pragmatism, we're like, okay, that's the sweet spot for Final Destination.
So I definitely want to talk about Bloodlines, but also it's been 25 years we've been making these movies. We haven't spoken about 14 years, like officially. So I kind of want to talk about the whole franchise, but also Bloodlines as well. Let's start with Bloodlines. I'm going to talk to Adam and Zach a little later.
Excellent.
But I'm curious. I saw Freaks a bunch of years ago, and I'm curious, like, what kind of made them the right directors to kind of take over for this movie?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, if you saw Freaks, that was a very textured and well-made. For the price point they had, it really looked rich. It was very thoughtful. They managed to execute some good visual effects for what was a threadbare budget. And all of those qualities made us realize that if given the opportunity to do a Final Destination, they would truly be able to elevate it beyond what the resources and budget that we normally get. Like, they really would know how to utilize what we were given to really make it sing. And I think Final Destination Bloodlines demonstrates that. It looks like it punches way above its weight. And a lot of that has to do with Zach and Adam understanding and knowing how to make every moment count and every dollar work towards that experience. That, plus the presentation that they gave, their pitch to direct, their presentation itself, just the content of it, they would have gotten the job. Because it was very smart and incisive and really understood how the franchise worked under the hood. But when they button it with Adam getting his head cut off by a falling ceiling fan and blood squirting everywhere, they were able to not only show how Final Destination as a franchise works, but demonstrate how they would direct a sequence in the very pitch by killing one of themselves off at the end, by executing the visual effects, by shooting it in advance, by editing it together seamlessly with the actual Zoom we were on. All of those things conspired to make us go, okay, these are clearly the right guys. And it's not just that they have the aptitude or the attitude, they really loved it. It showed how much they wanted to do it, and you can't put a price tag on that kind of passion, It really shows.
Yeah. Now, but the big difference here is this kind of starts as a period piece, and it's actually, I have it behind me, it's actually I think it's one of the biggest.
I thought your ear was blowing
pieces.
out. That's my bad.
Oh, yeah, no. I think it's obviously it's one of the biggest and most impressive set pieces, even compared to the bridge in the last one. Was that something you figured out very early, like that's going to be the start of it? I mean, is this stuff, like a lot of stuff was written before even Adam and Zach get involved?
Well, to be fair, originally there was an exploration of doing a casino ferry in the 60s that overturns, but we realized when we started to execute it that it doesn't actually lean as much into Final Destination as you would want, because if you're going to different floors of a ferry, the proximity to the characters is what makes Final Destination cool. And this particular design, it not only allowed us to do the fear of heights, but also there's nowhere to go when things start going haywire, because you fall or you burn. Like, there's nowhere to go. And that sort of cloistered sensibility made us pivot to the Skyview restaurant. And now we are here today with what I think is one of the best sequences in the entire franchise.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I saw it in IMAX, which is definitely a way to see it. That's
definitely worth seeing in IMAX.
Yeah, for sure. But also, it's very, very, very impressive. And so I mean, as far as executing something like that, I mean, how much time are they spending in prep? I'm going to talk to you a little later, but I'm curious about how much time are they spending in prep? Do they have models? Like, what are they doing to kind of get ready for that kind of thing?
There's previs, there's actual built models, there's the stunt previs to figure out how to make all this stuff work. Then once you start actually building that set, there was a 100-foot diameter set of the actual interior of the real restaurant. The whole thing was built entirely. You start to go up on the construction and you start mapping out where you want your cameras to be and sort of reverse engineering it so the production design can lean towards the shots that you want. I mean, the technology that went into making this realized is just astonishing. And like any movie these days, you never have the time or money that you would want to have for it. But I give, again, great credit to Zach and Adam for being able to navigate those limitations and turn them into positives because of both their attitude and their understanding of the process.
Yeah, I think last year you shared a picture from the set, and I had no idea what you were showing me. I had what is that? I have no idea what that is. Interesting.
Yeah, here to give.
Yeah. I want to talk about casting. I want to talk about casting not just for this movie, but just for the franchise and how you've approached it. You had a couple movies which were just teenagers. Like, I think 1 and 3 were mainly teenagers. Like, you had a couple which had a mix of different ages. But how do you go about like casting this? Not like you haven't gone like what I call the Modern Family route, where Modern Family became very popular, and all of a sudden they were casting like that guest star, big guest names, stuff like that. You really kind of stick with the what you've done. Well, and you've kind of found a couple of like great people along the way, obviously like Sean and Mary Elizabeth. But I'm curious about going about casting for these movies. Like, how do you approach them?
It really goes down to the situation at hand. This one was easy because John Watts, when he came to us with the idea, it was a family. So you automatically have a mom, a dad, aunts, uncles, and then the children thereof, and you have to make them of the right age, because we've learned that it might get a little challenging to start continually wipe out like 6 or 7-year-olds. It's probably not very tasteful. We had to be careful about that. So that really, like, once it was a family, it's not that it became easy, but it became an understandable box to play in. Then the challenge became casting people that looked like they came from the same gene pool, but also had that innate chemistry that families have, that sort of shorthand and that knowledge. I think one of the things that was interesting about shooting the first time we saw the cousins is Zach and Adam said, let's shoot this like a Robert Altman movie where they're moving back and forth, they're talking over each other, like there's no let's just block it and shoot it in the obvious ways, because we wanted to show that she's coming back into a dynamic, loving, fighting, all the things that make families unique. She's being dropped back into it, having been away at college. And I think that we were very successful at doing that, because it also really immediately gets you to understand exactly who these personalities are by virtue of their interaction. And remember, we had a very limited amount of time, because we spent a lot of time doing the Skyview sequence, and then we asked the audience to reboot the whole storyline and come back in, and that's a degree of difficulty for screenwriting that people don't really take into account. So I think that Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor did a remarkable job navigating that, with all of us helping to get to the point where we could get into the Final Destination meet as quickly as possible with characters that we actually cared about. And I think by having them be family members, there's an automatic empathy and understanding that you have for them that you wouldn't get from like Final Destination 2, when they're all just people who are on an off-ramp, or I should say an on-ramp. These are just randos. So that was the big benefit of John's idea, and I think the dividends pay off in how we care about these characters in this new movie.
Yeah, it's also great because it makes it a lot of the plays I hear from other people about it is like, oh, they're all the same, and you literally like completely threw a spanner, because you kind of, it's not the same. You're not following the people in the Skyview afterwards. You're going decades later, and then you're still kind of tying in all the other movies also. In some way, which is kind of like genius. That was John Watts' original idea. That was the original.
The original conceit is that we have this event of the Skyview. It just blossoms because all those people have to be taken out, but over time they're having families, so it's just become it metastasized in this larger group that now finally ends with Iris. She's the last of the survivors, and her family and her progeny are the ones who are next, which is why she's so motivated to communicate with the family that she's been ostracized from, because they think she's crazy. He's like, you don't understand, I'm going to be dying. You have to do this. You have to listen to me. And that where the mantle and the baton is handed to poor Stefanie to be the person that has to ringlead the family to try and save themselves. It's also, I think, an interesting look at generational trauma. Because you've got the grandmother having this terrible traumatic event. You've got the mother who is learning under this grandmother her mother seems to be crazy, and she decides, I don't want to do that to my own children. So she removes herself from the family and all the impact that has on Stefanie as she's growing up. This is a movie that examines the things that, like, how do we address those generational traumas? How do we readdress them and hopefully find amends and rapprochement? So one of the things that we were most pleased with is that this grandmother-mother-daughter story leans towards Darlene, played by Rhea Kilstead. She's given the opportunity to be the mom that she had sort of forsaken because she thought she was a bad influence, and try to save her kids. And it's very satisfying, and I think it's very emotionally resonant. For me, when Kaitlyn is acting in the last 20 minutes, like, you really feel it. You really believe it, that her mother is in danger and her mother has been impacted. So.
But it also brings more depth. It brings more depth to the characters. It brings more depth to the story. It's not just like okay, next kill. It's like literally like.
No, but that's interesting. We had a chance to do rehearsals with the actors, which is a very rare and quite a wonderful thing to do. And the first day, they just sat and talked about their families, and they talked about families and the things that they could bring to the characters. So by the end of that first rehearsal, they were kind of becoming a family, because they knew each other's secrets, they knew each other's family relationships, and that, I think, bonded them in a way that. is not manifest in the script, but it's everything in between the lines, if that makes sense. Like that sort of sense of connection was in between the lines, and it made you care instantly and understand more so than you ever would otherwise.
And I could tell when I went to the Fangoria screening, you could tell they all got along. You could tell all the actors got along. They were like a family.
We had no dickheads on this movie. Yeah. We were so fortunate. Seriously, so fortunate.
Yeah. We got to talk about Tonytodd. I mean, this legend. When he came on screen, people were applauding when he walked off the screen, and people were applauding when his name came up. It was just like, obviously people know him so much for Candyman, but not really. Final Destination is now his thing. It's kind of like his thing. I mean, did you that was always going to be part of it? Did you reach out to Tony very early to make sure he could do it? How was his health going?
We always look. We listen to the fans. They've always been curious about where Tonytodd came from. What is the nature of his character? And we sort of didn't want to answer that because we thought the mystery was more fun. But we realized leading into this movie that we needed to sort of provide that answer. And then when we learned that Tony was sort of having his health challenges, we really wanted to sort of work with him to give him a send-off that would be perfect for the character, but also an opportunity for Tony to be able to say something to his fans via the character of Bloodworth. Like his last words to the characters in the movie are actually the last words to his fans, because we all knew what was happening on the day. And it was very emotional for a lot of people. And it was emotional for me. I've known him for over 25 years, 26 years, because we shot the year before it was released. And but Tony was gracious and kind and very sort of self-aware of where he was in the world and what was happening, which made him so joyful and happy to be there. Like he's always a gregarious guy and very funny, actually. But to have him there and his presence just elevated everything that was happening that day on set. And we had actors showing up who weren't supposed to work that day just because they wanted to see and meet Tonytodd, the great Tonytodd. So I think that it was a gift that he was able to participate, and hopefully we were able to provide him with an opportunity to have closure on not just this franchise, but on his relationship with his fans in a positive way.
And that's another thing the actors said at this Q&A. They also were saying how much they just wanted to be around him and hear him talk, which is it was like a class, like an acting class almost.
Yeah, totally. He was a classically trained actor. He wasn't just the guy who did horror movies. He was from the theater first. So,
So we go from the legend of Tonytodd to the legacy of the log truck. The log truck. It has become this thing is like a minute in the second movie, and it's become this thing where literally people will see a log truck and they'll freak out, and like in real life they'll they're memes. It appears in Madam Web, which is people are already comparing to Final Destination even before seeing the movie.
I remember you sending me a text saying, "Dude, they stole your movie." Oh my god.
Yeah. But and of course the director said, "I don't know anything about it now." Though she was denied it. But anyway, so stuff like that, like the log truck. I mean, at what point do you realize, okay, this is something we have to? I think there's even in number 5. I believe there's even a log truck on
as they're going on the bridge, a log truck passes by the window.
Yep. So I mean, like, when do you realize that? And that's the thing. It's almost like Freddy's claws or Jason's mask or something. That's the thing. What is him, Dad, Tonytodd?
Ed, you never know going into it that it's going to be that thing. But what we try to do with these Final Destination movies is find the most relatable moment that makes so we were just looking for that, but we never imagined that it would take on such a life of its own. I get probably 4 or 5 new, freshly minted, generated memes every day about log trucks. And I think that speaks to why the franchise is successful, because we all find ourselves in Final Destination moments every day. It's whether we choose to realize that this is a potential, or whether we blissfully ignore it, or whether, sadly, it actually happens to you. We don't want that. And that's also why I think we'll be able to do these movies, if they're successful, forever, because there's always something that is the mundane and the inobtrusive that becomes malevolent when you add the Final Destination overlay.
Yeah, and it does. You walk out of these movies and you're immediately scared of everything, basically.
Yeah.
Just walking down the street.
Our job is to destroy professions, destroy locations, make people nervous to drink a glass of water with ice in it. That's our job, is to make that unsettling.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I think I told you that I didn't watch the trailer before seeing the movie. I've seen the teaser, but I went and cleaned it, and then I've seen the trailer now a few times, and it's perfect. It's a perfect trailer. Really, it is. I want to ask about pushing the gore, because it's really interesting. I think the first movie, you had that one with Sean getting. It was not that gory though. But then the second movie, you really pushed the envelope on that, and then since then it's just gotten. And this movie just kind of goes insane. Are you kind of like working out with Adam and Zach? Or are they kind of like seeing how far they can go, and then you have to go like, okay, we're not going to get an R rating? Or the other thing is, Terrifier came out, and the Terrifier now is like unrated and it's huge. So is it now like fair game? You can do whatever you want, or is it like still?
I mean, the Terrifier movies and their success made us realize that we don't have to be as restrictive, but we want to do it in a way that. Look, there's the hardcore, and you know this, the hardcore horror fans will always eat that stuff up. And we always have a solid base there. So we want to make sure we service them. But we also want to open the tent to bring in people who are like FD curious, the FD adjacent. So I think we have to be mindful about what their tolerance is. And if you notice, the thing that makes Final Destination work, for me at least, is not the punctuation of the gore at the end of the sentence that is that set piece. It's everything leading up to it, the close calls, the misdirect, the leaning in to guess how and when things are going to happen. That's the fun of the movies. You can always close your eye for the gore, right? So I would argue that the gore is the less interesting part of it. It's all the mechanics leading up to it that is a Final Destination movie. Did we push the gore? Sort of, I guess. I mean, we were trying to stay current, and we knew that the pendulum always swings back and forth with people's tolerance for these things. But I feel like because these movies are not meant to be nasty or mean, they're meant to be sort of fun and enjoyable, that the gore has to be tempered with a sense of, oh my God, I can't believe that's how everything happened to end with that. So I don't think that it is as gratuitous as perhaps 2 was, with him getting cut into 3 sharp cuts of beef and then falling over. I mean, that was pretty hardcore back in the day, right? I don't think we have anything like that. It's very organic to the situation that has been described and the set piece elements that are working together. So was there one death that you felt was really like, oh my God, how is this happening?
Well, I think the MRI one that's all I'll say. MRI is, oh my God, how could they go that far?
Just because somebody's Prince Albert happens to be attractive by magnets, but that's all in your head. You never see any of it.
Anything. It's true.
And that's another hallmark of FD. Like the tiniest things sometimes deliver the biggest dividends. Like a tiny screw on a balance beam with a gymnast going back and forth, or somebody getting their cuticles scraped in a hair salon. You just see that. You just go, ugh, or the tongue piercing.
The laser eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like the best examples of how this franchise works is captured in those little moments, because they are the everyday interactions that we have with life that we don't think about until you're asked by Final Destination to really think about them. And I apologize. I'm sorry.
And lastly, I just want to say that one of the aspects you've maintained is that people who deserve to die. I mean, you have people like in these movies that are like just such assholes. It's like, okay, they got to die in a certain way, and then sometimes you don't. Sometimes they're really nice people die also. It's very you're not playing favorites.
Death doesn't really care if you're nice or not. You're just on the list. But that was the thing that was like a biggest challenge for this element of having a family at the core, is that we couldn't not have the family members mourn the loss of their loved ones, but we couldn't have them dwell on that loss, because then it becomes a bit more sad than we need it to be without dovetailing back into the narrative of like, well, then who is next and how do we stop this thing? So I give a lot of credit to Zach and Adam for being able to balance a lot of very disparate tones into sort of a very organized and compelling whole that doesn't disavow any of them, acknowledges all of them, but doesn't dwell on the ones that might weigh down the experience, which should be and is a very fun, entertaining time at the movies.
Listen, Craig, it's great talking to you. I love talking about FD.
Sir.
I love talking about FD. I'm going to appear on at least 2 podcasts talking about it. I'm going to write my review. I'm going to talk to the directors later. It's really, to me, this is like this makes me so happy that after 14 years, this is back, and I'll be very happy if in 2 or 3 years there's another one, and I'll.
Hey, look, I'll be there. I'm going to light a candle right now based on what you said, and hopefully it'll never go out.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure to see you, sir.
Likewise, man. Take care.
Brother.